All right. Good evening, everybody. You can see in the background we have the star of the show, Nisha, having a good scratch there, and why not? As always, we are your hosts. My name is Daniel Vacanti. Joining with me is I always forget your name. What's your name again?
Prateek Singh.
Yeah. Back on topic for tonight's episode. Last time we talked about how because we talked about you don't know value up front, and so because you don't know value up front, doing any type of prioritization based on value will get you into trouble very, very quickly, and in the long run will actually hurt you rather than help you. Not only hurt you a little bit, but probably hurt you significantly. We talked about some ways to mitigate that, namely, work on smaller stuff, right size, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of you out there, I'm sure, probably have the objection. You're saying, well, but of course you know value up front. Of course we can know value up front. We can do things like usability testing, or we can do things like surveys, or we can do things like whatever. And just talking to our customers. Of course, our customers are going to tell us what they want, and they're going to be truthful in communicating that to us. So of course we have a really, really, really good idea of what value is up front. And so this edition of Drunk Agile is going to be starting to, as usual, debunk that myth as well, that all these supposedly tried and true methodologies to understand value up front really don't help, and again, probably hurt in the long run. So I don't know. I think I always say this, and I end up talking the most. But I think in this episode, I think Prateek will be doing most of the talking. So I don't know, Prateek, can you take us away? Can you kind of lead us down that path?
Yeah, it's based. What we're talking about today is based a lot in a few things we've talked about in the past. It's all the stuff from, and if you've been watching these, you've heard these names before: Richard Taylor, Annie Duke, Danny Kahneman, Tversky, all those folks. It's their work that leads us down the path of figuring out, hey, do people really mean what they say, or are we able to judge value from a completely economical perspective, traditionally economical perspective? And taking it a little further, there are a few other folks who have written about this stuff, which talk about. There's a great book called Everybody Lies. So those who are listening to look this up. And in Everybody Lies, it reaffirms your piece of, hey, there are essentially three main kinds of lies that we tell day to day. One is the lies we tell ourselves, and we'll get into that maybe later. Second is the lies that everyone around us reaffirms for us. And the third is the lies our customers tell us, lies people we interact with tell us. And that's where this whole concept of value starts to fall apart. Your customers can demand or request, whichever way your customers talk to you, a lot of things, saying, I really want this. But that, and then when you do design research with them and get feedback, can often lead you astray. And we'll hopefully talk about a couple of examples of that today, and make the point that feedback, as we traditionally understand it, is actually misguided. Where I think Dan used the term steam engine era methods.
Yes, steam era statistics. Yeah, steam era statistics.
Yeah, statistics. And I think our surveys and that direct interviews are, in my opinion, steam era methods of getting feedback. We can do so much better.
Right. So just to reiterate, I just want to make sure everybody understands. We're still talking about kind of the prioritization aspect of things. So we're in the part of the workflow where we haven't worked on anything yet. We're just trying to figure out what to do, right? It's before we've done any work. It's before we've actually delivered anything tangible to our customers. We're trying to make a decision. All right, well, okay, what should we be working on? Right? Yeah. And so that's where things like the focus groups or usability testing or whatever, prototyping and usability testing, all that stuff can come in. We can say, well, we can try and gather some of this information from our customers to help us decide what we're supposed to work on. Because of course that information is valuable and will help us to be able to calculate what are those things, or help us to be able to prioritize what are those things that we should work on. So Prateek, tell me why tell me why that's maybe not the case. Why gathering that information up front may not be all that helpful.
Yeah, first I'm glad that we've at least level set on the fact that just sitting in a vacuum and deciding it and doing a whole bunch of calculations on your own and figuring it out is worse than actually going and talking to somebody. Let's just level set on that. Yeah. I like to compare it to making New Year resolutions, where people sit in the vacuum and go, these are the things I'm going to do this year. And then 2 months later, I'm drinking more bourbon than I was the year before.
And we kind of showed last time, you'd be better off just throwing darts to try and decide what you're going to work on. If you're going to do that, literally, you would be better off rolling dice, just choosing stuff at random. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so we're not in that world. We're in this world where we're legitimately trying to understand what value is.
Yeah. We've pulled a whole bunch of people in and we've said, here is our idea for a new product. Well, let's go down that path to say, hey, I have a product right now, successful product, but I am starting to lose market share because another product's come in and it's taking market share away from me. And I decide that, hey, it may be a great idea is to revamp this product. And let's say I take this new product, bring in a focus group, I prototype it and I put it in front of them. And I go, before I go full scale production, before I go really hammer this in, here's a focus group. Tell me what you think about it. Now, what if that focus group comes back with 75% of us go, this is excellent. This is awesome. I love this so much more than your last product. And 15% of them go, that's about the same. I'm not that different. 10% go, no, really, I like the other product much better, the older product. At that point, what decision would you make? You've got 90% people saying this is the same or much better than the previous one, and 10% going, yeah, not really like it as much as the previous one. What decision would you make at that point?
Well, of course, you'd go with the 10%. I mean, of course, right? Yeah. I mean, 90%. I mean, 90% just doesn't exist. I mean, if you ever had something where you got 90% back, I mean, that's about as slam dunk as you get, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like anything you put out there, especially if you just go to YouTube and look at the comments, just go to look at Twitter. No, there is no way 90% of the people agree and go, this thing is good. And so you'll go with that, obviously. And this is actually a real case where one of the biggest corporations in the world almost went out of business and had to revert that decision. And this literally were the statistics from when Coca-Cola introduced New Coke.
Yeah, I mean, I believe at the time, Coke, they were probably the largest beverage producer in the world.
They were. They had 60% of the market. Yep. And as crowded as that market is, they had 60% of it. And everyone knows the story. They rolled out New Coke after it was actually, if you want to look it up, it was called Project Kansas. And they did their UAT or their design sprint, whatever you want to call it, with that, put the prototype in front of a bunch of people, and they loved it. And this is the same time when they were getting beaten up on the Pepsi challenge, because Pepsi was doing the blind taste tests, and everyone loved Pepsi. But then when they saw the brand, they actually liked Coke. So they tried to counter that with, hey, let's Pepsi's taking up market share. Let's figure it out.
Instead of learning from Pepsi's mistake, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. When blindfolded, we like Pepsi better, but when we actually see something, we'll actually take Coke, right? Yeah.
Which falls completely in line with what we're talking about here, which is the actual product gives you real feedback rather than this, blind taste tests or this prototype thing. That's the real product gives you feedback. So not only was this a mistake by using prototype feedback as a slam dunk value thing, it was a reaction to another corporation's mistake of using blind taste tests.
Yeah.
So that in itself is one example of where it's not the I say our customers lie to us. They do, but they don't know they're lying to us. It's this happens all the time. This literally happens all the time. This was a huge example, but it happens day to day. And I'm sure everyone watching this, teams you've worked on, or teams you've managed, or teams in your organization, teams you've coached, have very often worked on this thing that the customer said, I really absolutely must have. This is so important. And when you actually deliver it, they're like, yeah, I know we said that, but it's okay. We found a way to get around it.
Yeah, I can't tell you. So to give you guys a little bit of background out there, when I founded Actionable Agile, and if you don't know what Actionable Agile is, shame on you, because it's the best metrics tool on the market. It's the best flow-based metrics tool out there, on the market. But
I know Julia does such a good job with it.
Yeah, I don't know. Can I flip people off on that? I don't know. I don't know if we should keep it PG or not. I don't know. Maybe that's for after. But when I was developing Agile, I was faced with these exact questions, and the biggest customers I had, either they were existing customers or they were people that I was selling to. They would always come to me, like an existing customer would say, hey, Dan, your product's great, but in order to really get uptake, we need this particular feature. Or I'd be selling to a big customer and they'd be like, yeah, Dan, your product's great, but we just can't buy it unless you have this feature. And I can't tell you how many times that we stopped and because I'm a terrible product owner, probably, maybe that's the moral of the story. But we stopped what we were doing and we went and we chased these features that our customers were literally coming to us and saying, Dan, build this feature and we will buy. They were literally saying that to me, this, we're talking about a non-insignificant portion of revenue. And so we did, and I can't tell you how many times that we did that. And, we developed a feature as quickly as possible. We put it in front of them and there'd be crickets. So, I mean, it's like, I think, not to belabor the subject, but the cumulative flow diagram is probably the most requested feature in the Actionable Agile tool, because if you're learning Kanban, if you're learning flow, for whatever reason, everybody thinks the cumulative flow diagram is the end all be all. It isn't. It isn't. I mean, it really isn't. But when you look at when we look at usage of our tool, the first thing people ask is, do you have a cumulative flow diagram? But when you go look at actual usage, nobody really uses a cumulative flow diagram. The features that are our most popular were kind of afterthoughts that no one really thought about. It was just kind of things like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. We're just going to kind of put it in. And those are our most, features. So this is not scientific by any stretch of the imagination, but I kind of stumbled into this, kind of backward, because I kept running into these people and they were lying to me, right? Like I said, I don't think they thought they were lying to me, but they were lying to me, which is why I think it's one of the reasons you and I started talking about this.
Yeah, and similar to that, like I right now act as product owner and developer for an internal tool, and almost every day, a development team member or a manager comes to me and says, "I need this in this tool, otherwise, it's useless to me.
It's not useful." Yeah.
And I dig in a little more to go, okay, what exact problem are you trying to solve? And their problem is something completely different, which I'm already working on, because it's not what it's not what they believe they want. What they believe they need. It's something completely different. And that was another thing about what we talked about last time. I could literally throw darts at my feature board and go, that's the next feature I'm working on. And it would end up being more valuable to my end users than a feature request list from the end users.
Well, so let's, I don't know if it's maybe too soon or whatever, but I mean, let's talk about antidotes to this, right? I mean, what, how do we fix this problem? And again, I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit, and talk about one of your favorite quotes is, the trick is finding out how wrong you are as quickly as possible. That is really the trick. You have to go in assuming that you've got it all wrong. And that the only way that we are going to be able to verify how wrong we are, like you said earlier, is to get something tangible, real in the hands of your customers that they are paying for. so that they can, vote with their feet or vote with their dollars or vote with their whatever, instead of, just paying some lip service. So you have an example or some examples of
I have
how some companies do that, right?
Yeah. So what you're really saying, and then I'm gonna reinterpret that and say it is, what we're really saying is, because we cannot determine value, it's hard to maximize for value. What we're trying to do is, in that ROI equation, because we cannot maximize the return, let's minimize the investment to find out if we're moving in the right direction. This is the whole right sizing, small sizing thing that we've talked about before, but we'll get to that.
So you're telling me the denominator is most important? Because we just talked last time how the numerator is the most important. You just, right? No, okay.
Yeah, no. There's actually, and even beyond that, what's probably the more important piece is verifying from your customers, are we actually delivering some sort of value? Are we actually solving a problem? And I think that's where the traditional methods fall apart. As we've already said, customers don't always know what they want. And there's a great example of this, which is so again, when we're talking about people lying, we have to talk about Facebook.
Have to.
I think they have the trademark on it now.
Yeah, you have to.
I think Facebook's been around since 2003, I believe. And if you guys don't remember, and this is another, it was kind of like what MySpace used to be. For those who remember MySpace, you had to know the address of the person's wall, and you would go to their thing on Facebook, and you could see what they have posted and their pictures and all that stuff. It wasn't that whole, you could become friends or whatnot, but the way Facebook right now didn't exist. You did not go to your home page to get updates on people. You went to their pages to get updates on people. In 2006, Facebook rolled out what is now known as the news feed, which did what Facebook does now, which is you go to your home page and everyone that you're connected to, their updates show up in a list. When they rolled it out, there was a huge uproar against this, because which sounds ludicrous right now, because everyone was concerned that this was an invasion of privacy. And if you have Facebook and you're not concerned about invasion of privacy, that's a completely different topic. But people were really upset. There were hundreds of thousands of people who had created groups saying things like students against newsfeed. And they were the product designer for Facebook. People were literally sending her emails saying she's the devil, and they were sending Zuckerberg emails. It was a huge uproar back then, because people were saying, why is it that when I haven't given permission to Facebook to show my feed randomly somewhere else, it's being shown somewhere else? Or why is it that when I log into Facebook now, I feel like I'm spying on people? So that was the initial reaction of the users. The users really went, I hate this. They literally came back and said, this is just the most awful thing you could have done. What's interesting though, the counterpoint to this, what's really interesting is just based on that user feedback, you would have gone, we should roll this thing back. This is awful. All my users hate this. This is awful. But
yes, stop all investment on it. We're not doing any more development, right? Yeah, I knew that, right?
Yeah, we're done. This is awful. Let's pivot. Let's do something else.
Right.
Let's make the pictures prettier, whatever. Let's do something else. But Zuckerberg didn't do that. The Facebook team didn't do that, because that is not the feedback they were paying attention to. They were actually paying attention to page views. And a month after rolling this out, their page views went from 10 billion to 22 billion. Their page views more than doubled in 2 months. And if those are the numbers in front of you, and your main way of making money is getting money from advertisers and later selling data to other governments, then you would say, I want more pay. I mean, people might be telling you they hate it, but they're obviously going and looking at this stuff. They obviously want this. So what most folks do wrong, in my opinion, is they actually listen to their users rather than observe their users. And
Right.
Facebook, whether you hate them or like them, did exactly that. They were observing their users and adapting themselves to it.
Right. And context is key here, because again, we're not talking about users in a focus group, in a controlled usability test, and whatever. It's like, it has to be real and out there in the wild, where they're paying for it, the actual thing that they're using, because they will lie, right? If it's upfront, it's just kind of this ethereal, non-tangible thing, they're going to lie. That's the point of this whole talk. It's like, only if you get it out there and see, like you said, observe how they're actually using it. That's really the only way to know.
And the problem with also having what we were talking about earlier is having determined value up front, or having even estimated value up front based on user feedback, is you essentially, it's anchoring. You get anchored to that value, and you're like, this is what we're working towards. Instead of treating every project, every feature, every story as a bet and as an experiment, and saying, hey, this might or might not pay off. We need to find out if it does or doesn't. As opposed to doing that, you're saying, we know how much this will get us, so we have to march forward and get this thing done. We're married to this thing.
Yeah, and that's where, everything probably really comes back to poker playing, because that's kind of the essence of poker playing, is how do you spend as little as possible to get as much information as possible, right? If you can do that, you will win most of the poker games. Every once in a while, luck will come in, and it's just luck, right? But, poker players have this concept of bankroll management, and it's like, how do I spend as little money as possible to get as most information as possible? That's really what it's all about. And so, this kind of brings it back full circle, because that's what we're talking about. Is what you really want to do is spend a lot less time. And it's so counterintuitive. It freaks people out when we say this. I don't know how many people would be brave enough to do this, but it's exactly what we're saying is, and it's something that we did actually at Actionable Agile, is we spent essentially zero time up front trying to figure out what people wanted, we kind of had a little kind of a randomized prioritized list, and we just tried to get those things done as quickly as possible to see what was working and what wasn't working. That to me, that's really kind of the essence of Agile, if you really kind of get down to it.
Yeah, and just I think the base assumption in all this is, or the base tenet for me in all this, is knowing that most of the time, 90% of predictions that we make are going to be wrong. So 90% of the time, we're going to be wrong about how valuable this thing is. We're going to be wrong about how much time this thing will take. We're going to be wrong. So every time we do that, every time we do upfront value calculation, regardless of all the time we spent figuring out value upfront, knowing that we'll be wrong helps me understand that all that time is potentially waste. All that time we're potentially wasting, as opposed to doing small things and putting them out there and figuring out if users are actually doing something with it. All the time spent figuring out value, estimating, even doing extensive user testing, it's waste.
Right.
And I say extensive because I think you still need some sort of it. I won't completely discount it. I will still say that, if you still want to put in front of a couple of people to kind of go, hey, am I going down the right path? If you have beta customers.
Yep. So, I think we've kind of beat this topic. I'm getting kind of low on my whiskey. So, just to kind of reiterate to kind of where we came from. Basic assumptions that we're saying is, number one, you think you know value, you don't. You think you can find out value, you can't, right? The only real way, the only medicine that we have, the only mitigating strategy that we've got here is, how quickly can we get something in the hands of our customers, something real, something tangible that they have to use, that they have to pay for, whatever. How quickly can we do that and observe how they're using it, so that we can make adjustments to our our product roadmap or our feature list or a backlog or whatever you want to call it, based more on that information, based more on the Facebook story rather than on the new Coke story. So I'll give you as always, I'll give you the last word. If there's anything you want to say to kind of tie everything up for us tonight.
Yeah, no, that's essentially it. And I think we're as people who are invested in Agile, we should always be focused more towards verifying if something was valuable rather than figuring out if something is going to be valuable.
Right. So with that, hopefully, I'm sure everybody agrees with this now. All of these value conversations are, at best waste, at worst probably damaging. So with that, I don't know. We'll have to figure out. That's kind of that's our I was gonna say it's our value trilogy, but I'm not sure how many we did on it. How many episodes we did on it. So for Nisha, who's there in the background, you can see what
she is
two, maybe three legs, three legs and a tail. So for Nisha, for Prateek Singh, my name is Daniel Vacanti. Thank you again for joining us for Drunk Agile tonight. And of course, we will see you in the next episode. Good night, everybody.
Good night.